What's going on, guys? It's Real and Jordan and Demi. I'm here in LA and on the beautiful Santa Barbara coast, the California version of Demi Ramos. What's going on?
I feel like Malibu Barbie over here.
And today our guest is Chevelle's Pete Loeffler. What's going on, Pete?
Not a whole lot, man. Just chilling right now, doing interviews.
Yeah, doing interviews. Got
home.
The headphones on. Got the whole home studio setup going. So you're about, I guess, right. We're recording this the 1st of July. You're about 6 weeks out from the release of Bright as Blasphemy, your new album. We're not typically a spilling tea kind of podcast, but I do know that this is kind of representative of your break from Epic. So what was it like to record this album compared to what you had been through previously?
We did everything differently. We messed it up this time. Good. We built a whole studio in my house and just started tracking and just didn't know if it was going to work out at all. So in the past, we do demos and then you get a producer and you work with them. We skipped all of that. We just dove in, and for our 10th record, just wanted to do and try something new. So we hoped it worked, we hope people dig it,
Yeah. Well, the first two singles, which are kind of like a 2-part single, they kick ass. It sounds really cool. You said it was all brand new. I know that you've had some interesting lineup changes. So you and Sam are currently the only full-time Chevelle members right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. We have Kemble playing bass for us. And not only is he a good bass player, but he heads up his own band called Ages and sings in that, plays guitar. But then he also does studio work. So when he heard that we needed to get a studio up and running, he's like, let's just dive in. He's like, I'll just fly me out and we'll just start digging in. And we did that. And then 2 years later, and a bunch of frustration and a bunch of beers, we ended up with a finished record. So we tracked I want to say 12 songs, but we ended up, I really only wanted to put out 8. I kind of want to dial it back and kind of go backwards to where I think in the past, in the 70s and stuff, you would have 4 songs per side of an LP, of an actual record. So I was like, let's do that. I feel like nobody's attention span really lasts that long anyway. Let's kind of because I went from Neuradius, the last record, which was 13 tracks, and I felt like it was just too much, it fit, and that's a well-rounded record. It is what it is. But the plan was to do 8 songs. And now that this might actually be our last record in that sort of grand scheme of things too. I might be dialing back even more. We'll see how this goes. We'll always be putting music out, but maybe there's some way we can move the needle a little bit more. And a lot of the musicians I'm talking to are like, yeah, it takes so long to get a full album done now. And if you're somewhat established, you've had a career, you can drip it out a little bit more, maybe a three song EP, something like that. And then you're actually you can go and tour on that. We have 10 full length albums. And if we put out 3 songs a year, people might be okay with that. I don't know. We'll see. What are you going to do? You're trying stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the paring down the tracks and stuff. Is you guys have never gone in a proggy direction, but I always felt like it was inside of you somewhere to do a 7-8 minute, long epic songs with different segments and stuff. Has that ever been, floated to the top of your brain, maybe do something conceptual like that? Or was it just kind of too dorky to do a Genesis style,
Oh, I think that the song, if it needs that, yeah, you'll know it and you'll just do it. I think if you sit down and if I were to say, okay, this is the focus, yeah, I would be into that for sure. But I think it's harder to write a short song, a short good song. And I think if you have 5 or 6 minute song, you have that much room, you can really overstuff a turkey. That's how I'm looking at it. it's really easy to do that, and then you can lose somebody's attention span. But on the last record, we did I think it's a 5.5 minute, close to a 6 minute song that made it on the radio. So, you know, I think I'm looking at songs a little differently. I think when you go and you look at like a song like that Blur put out, song number 2, I think it's called, you know, it's like 2 minutes long, and it's brilliant. You know, you can't argue with that. So now I think I'm starting to look at things like, again, just flip the script a little bit, try and search for that. And I actually did on this last record. I know this is long-winded, but there's a song called AI Phobia on the new record, and that song went through like 4 different, you know, arrangements. The first one is super short, 2.5 minute window, rock track, guitar, drums, bass, super simple. Our team didn't love it. I think they wanted something a little more like big choruses, but it was just my experimenting, trying to write a song like Blur would. And we may release that one as well, so people can see where it started and where it ended up.
So is that song for sure on the project AI Phobia?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, that's on the album.
Can we talk a little bit about AI Phobia?
Sure.
You have that?
Yeah.
Is that what the song is about?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, some songs are like poetry, you know, and I'm not going to like sit here and explain the full emotional side of Pale Horse to everybody who asks, you know what I mean? Like the first track on the record. But then some songs are just, you know, they needed a title like that, you know, like we're all sitting here waiting to see what's going to happen with AI and quantum computing and ChatGPT even, but it's like, nobody knows. We're just kind of.
How do you feel about like AI and ChatGPT? Like, what's your take on this fast development of technology at the moment?
I think that it could be really good for science. I think it could help humankind if it like helped with curing diseases, finding pathways around that, you know, maybe getting to Mars, you know. There's these huge hurdles we have to get past before we can actually go to another planet. I mean, you know, when you're in the starkness of space, you're getting bombarded with radiation. So maybe if AI does get to that next level, it's helping with fixing these problems and coming up with solutions. But I think that, but on a creative level, I think it's dangerous. You know, I think I'm not a fan, and our fans are not a fan of AI artwork and AI music. They are not digging it. So we'll see.
You know, what's interesting, Pete, is that my dad is almost 70 and he loves AI technology. He loves making things. He's just like awestruck. And I think it's because, you know, growing up in the 60s, 70s and all the sci-fi movies in 2001 and all this stuff, that it feels like he's getting to see the promise fulfilled. But people like me who grew up with computers and the internet are more freaked out. Have you found that to be the case, that people that, you know, older people that you interact with are more excited than the younger people? Because I ask that because Chevelle has a wide range of fans. You have younger fans in their 20s and you have older fans, you know, middle-aged in their 50s. So
you know, I haven't sat down and talked to a lot of our fans about that yet, but I've seen the response when we post something on socials and it is manipulated like that, you know, even if it's just for a joke. Yeah. Like they don't even like that as a joke, you know? So we found that, you know, cause I thought maybe it's just content at the end of the day. Like you're just, you know, maybe you're like putting a photo of you into it and you're trying to get something that just for content, which everybody's trying to get content all the time now. Yeah. It's just what it is. But no, I think we're gonna be steering clear of that. I would certainly never try and get AI to write me a song or lyrics, finish this song, or like, you know, I think that there's some good places for it, you know, there's gotta be, right? But like, in the arts, maybe not. I mean,
Yeah,
know.
it feels like, I know we're kind of getting down a rabbit hole, but it kind of feels like
Yeah.
isn't the point of making art as it's like a human experience, you know, it's not
Yeah,
I just,
entirely. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like
Yeah, I
we
mean,
kind of
like,
get
also, we don't want to lose our gigs here either. It's like,
right.
so even if AI could create the next Chevelle record, then what am I going to do with my time? You know what I mean? Like, I guess I could go do something else. I could go, you know, whatever. There's a million things, but you know, the joy is in the creating, and it's the spark you're searching for.
Yeah, I was just talking. Demi is in a band and she makes music, and we were just talking about that. She said that making the music is her favorite part of it. Recording, that, making the music, and finding that perfect combination of things to put together. Yeah. Do you still find joy in recording, Pete? Do you still like really enjoy getting into the studio? Or
Oh man, I don't know if I ever did. I don't know. That part of it is like, that part is, it's kind of like the slog. You're like, because at first you start out like, you're like, oh, this is exciting, and then a week goes by and you're like, oh, I'm really nitpicking. I haven't even recorded one guitar lick here. It's like I'm just searching for this tone, you know. So there are parts of it that I enjoy, you know, after it gets over a certain hump, you know, you have some stuff done. But I think it's you know, the hardest part is really finishing a track and saying it's done. Yeah. That's difficult, you know.
Well, I feel like hard rock, like recording hard rock is just, do you guys find it hard to translate the energy from, you know, you guys making the song, let's say in a rehearsal room, to record? Like, how do you guys translate that energy?
Yeah. Well, in the early 2000s, there was this movement of make everything perfect. That's what we came up against, because we started with an indie label and made a record with Albini, Steve Albini. And that was like the furthest thing. He didn't have anything like that wasn't analog, right? So everything was, you plug it in, tubes. And then we made another record, and everything we didn't know going into this it was like all perfect. Everything was like, cut it up in Pro Tools and make sure there's no hiccup at all. There's no breath, you know? And I think that there's a time when we started working, Brian Virtue. We did Sci-Fi Crimes. So it was like, I don't know what year it was, 2009, something like that, 8. And we went back to that. So we had these records that were like really crisp and clean, and we didn't even know what they were doing to them. They were like chopping up the drums, making every hit perfect. And had I had the knowledge to understand what was happening at the time, I would have stopped it. But we went back to it and more of an organic tone on Sci-Fi Crimes. And I think that the secret with Rock Band is really, you got to have the song first and foremost. If that's undeniable, you're happy with demos, then you can start tracking. But everybody works a little different. It's just how we do it. But, you know, with Joe Barisi, our old producer, we did 4 albums with, we would get the tunings great. Everything was tracked. And then he'd say, can I swear on this? I don't know.
Yeah.
And he would literally say, okay, let's fuck it up. Okay. Now we would put a dirty guitar over the top with a ton of fuzz. And he'd say, you don't think about this, just play the track, you know? So it was like, you would get the realness and the rawness would come back. And then he would sort of like do his magic and mix in the good and the bad and then blend it. So that's really, it comes down to an art there. So you don't, I mean, if you're a rock band, it depends what style you're in. I mean, if you're in Gojira, which I love, their records sound amazing, but they also still sound real. And then if you're in a band like, you know, maybe like Jack White, you know, White Stripes way back when, it's like you didn't want it perfect. He doesn't want anything perfect. So I think that's where we live. We don't need perfection.
I actually have point number 1 on CD. You recorded that with Albini, right?
Yeah.
How were you introduced to him, and what was it like kind of setting things up and recording with him?
Yeah, the Steve Albini thing was cool right out of the gate. You know, we're from Chicago. He's a Chicago legendary producer. we all knew him from PJ Harvey, and of course he did Nirvana and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. So when that came up, it was like the label at the time didn't realize that if you just sent your work into Albini, he didn't have like this whole crew of people that like he only worked with certain people. He would love to say, I'm not a producer, I'm an engineer. So he would work with anyone. So in the past, people didn't know this. He would just, if he was like, I have time, sounds cool, let's do it. And you would go in and a week or two, you'd have a finished record. But it turns out that whole process is it's almost too organic for what we wanted. And that record it's what it is. We, at the time, we actually needed some producing. Looking back, you know what I mean? I'm not exactly, I'm not sure where that record lands for me.
Really?
It seems so unfinished to me and so like uncooked. You know what I mean? Like I loved being able to work with him. I learned a lot, but I also, I also went to him at the end of the project and said, I don't really love it. I don't think we're going to put it out. And we did it again with him. And then at that point, you're like, 25 grand is so much money, because you're a kid and you're like, this label's like, our first label was a total disaster. That whole experience was a total disaster. Like they said one thing and did another. We found ourselves in places we didn't want to be and people we didn't want to be around. So that whole experience, we had to literally reset after point number one. And we weren't happy. We went out on tour and we had to write at the same time. It was a real awakening for us, but it was good because we got involved with a really great person who started her own management company, and she took us under her wing, and we got out of a horrible record deal, which that first label, I don't even want to say their names, but they would sign bands for your whole career. So they owned us for like 8 albums. And we had no idea what we were doing. So this is the darker side of the music business, And if you don't know what you're doing, don't do anything. Okay. That's my advice to someone starting out. And we did all the wrong things. Like all we don't want to do is go on tour and play these songs. So we reset in like 2000 and got involved with some good people. An attorney got us out of that record contract. And we re-signed with Epic Sony, and really that's when our career was really kind of starting. So we really feel like the band has had a new lease on life. It has two times, and everything started after Wonder What's Next in 2002-ish.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's a really interesting record because it both fits in with what other bands are doing at the time, but it also doesn't fit in with what other bands are doing at the time because you were kind of at the tail end of nu metal, and Linkin Park was really big at the time. Was there what do you remember about before the album came out? What was the A&R conversations like? Were they really like, this is going to be a big commercial hit, or was it like, let's put it out and see what happens?
First and foremost, yeah, everybody says that this is going to be huge. You're never, you're never going to have to do construction again. Like I was doing, I was tearing roofs off of houses and like putting second floor additions on and working on a crew when I was like 19 years old.
That's rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, it was do or die. My brother and I, it was 3 brothers back then, that's a whole nother story. But it's always been Sam and I, the drummer, Sam and I, we've always just worked together and no matter what it was, like every project, like we worked together and, with our father at times, we're doing construction and then on the band. So when we would go and do an 8-hour, work day, and then we'd go down in the city and we'd play Double Door or Metro in Chicago and, or whatever club we played everything. We that's what you had to do back then. You play anything, backyard barbecue. So when you're that sort of desperate, but you're also like, you feel like, you know, the desperation's it's not bad. It's a good desperation. You're like, this is our way out. It's like,
it's a hunger, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, once you get bit by that bug, you have to do it. And everybody knows, you know what that spark is in yourself. You know what I mean? Like when you really hit that, you know, that mark. So, and it's just something you strive for. And I remember my brother told me, he's like, I think he said, if we don't have anything going by 26, I think he was turning 26, something like that, 27. He's like, I gotta check out of the music business. And it was right around there that we got some real heat. And then we went out on tour on Ozfest, and that changed our whole worlds.
Yeah. I wanted to, let's talk about you for the first, that trio of songs that was on Wonder What's Next is just like wild how you guys, I was just looking at the sequence of how you guys kind of put that together. Send the Ping Below is really great, but the Red was really like your big, like, what is this kind of thing? And I remember, because I'd known you from Point Number One, hearing the Red on radio, I was like, wow, this is the Point Number One band. So tell us about the writing of that and the recording of it, giving it such a full, large sound.
Yeah. So, of course, we demoed everything, and then we got a producer named Garth Richardson, and we flew up to Canada. That was a whole new learning experience. I know that these are long-winded answers. I hope that's okay. But we actually landed in Vancouver, Canada, September 10th in 2001. That's how long ago. That's how old we are. The next day, I got a call, and my girlfriend said, "You got to get up. We've been attacked." And I turned on the news, and it was the Twin Towers were flown into. So that's how we started that record. That's how we went in that day. And I'm not going to say a lot of shit about that producer, but he did a lot of drugs and he talked a lot of shit. And I don't know if it was like a tactic of his to, like, because we're playing aggressive music, he was like, I'm going to rile them up. Because that was sort of a thing. You know, you hear all these stories about these producers. They would, you know, if they work with, I think there was a story about Limp Bizkit, like Ross Robinson would like run in there and, like, you know, they mess with people, you know what I mean? To get them agitated, to actually get a better performance.
Like the opposite of Rick Rubin.
Yeah. Rick would probably stroll in, you know, once a week and say, no, I don't know. This is what I've heard from different people. I've never worked with him. He's a legend, but so that's how we started that project. And you can almost, I don't know, it was weird. It was like so much good came out of that record, but it started on such a negative note. You know, I have so many stories I could bore you with here about, you know, Bryan Adams owned the studio, and he would kick us out of the studio, and he'd tear all our gear down. Mind you, that record cost us $500,000. This is back when, like, you spent a lot of money making records, and if you didn't watch, they would spend everything. Like we didn't make money on these records for a long time because they would spend everything. And Bryan Adams would come in and he'd be like, I'm throwing this party, you don't mind? And they just pull all our gear down. Everything's mic'd, close mic, cabs, drums, everything.
No way.
Spent a lot of time getting it perfect.
Yeah. And he'd throw this party where it was just to make fun of people. I'm not even making this shit up. Like, he brought this piano player, supposedly, set a piano in the middle, brought in all these like swanky looking artsy, you know, hipsters. And then this kid walked up and he'd open the top and he'd like take a fork and he'd like, ding, dong, 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 you know, like all this shit. I lived this stuff. And this was wild. I wish I had a video camera going back then. Everybody was just high and drinking copious amounts. And it was like a weird time. It was crazy. It was like we spent all this money and time and energy, and really, honestly, I don't know, why we didn't just like, call them out on this stuff. But when you're young and you're in another country and people are just telling you what you're going to do that day, you're like learning in the fire. You really are. And you're like trying to like stand up for yourself, but also get work done. And turns out he was starting fires behind our back with the label.
Wow.
So like if you didn't do what he said exactly, then he was like, he'd call your management and say, I can't work with these guys. And then he would come to you and say, don't ever talk to your label. Don't, just tell everybody everything's cool all the time. Just make them happy. But behind the scenes, he was like creating these problems. So it might sound like I'm complaining here. I'm not. I was trying to tell you an interesting story about that process. That record was the hardest record we ever did because it was so up and down and so much emotion and the time that we started. And
wow, it was like a reflection of where you guys were at the time, like that chapter of your life.
It really was. I mean, it really was. It was just like we were trying to like get to the next thing, which we had to get something that we loved and wanted to play every night because we just weren't happy with the first go around.
Were those songs like Send the Pain Below and The Red, were they a reflection of your headspace at the time, or am I jumping to conclusion on that? Like, because those aren't like happy, fun, walk through the tulip field kind of songs,
Yeah, I haven't talked about The Red and Send the Pain in a long time because it feels like, I'm always like, oh, let's talk about the new stuff, Yeah. But I'm happy to try and revisit that. I'm trying to think back, like, I think what I would always say about Send the Pain Below is that, if you're in a hard rock band or whatever, you're not writing necessarily about happy-go-lucky things. So you would, you would just pull from like various things that you're living at the time. And like, let's face it. I mean, if you're like a teenager, you're not that necessarily that deep. There are some people like, I'm trying to think about how I thought about things back then. I hope I was introspective, back then, but really honestly, like the rage-filled thing of The Red was really, it came from seeing someone in my family that would destroy something that they loved because they weren't emotionally aware. And, so it was like, or they couldn't manage their emotions. So, but that's just something that really works with a way to identify with other people that are your age. I mean, so those songs fit a time, and it's not something I could even recreate now. I mean, so those songs were really like for a time, and they connected, and also everything we did connected. And also you had the machine behind you. That was back when you could sell records, Right. So, I mean, we were selling 30, 40,000 records a week.
Wow.
Out on Ozfest. And it was like we were opening the main stage. So it was an amazing time because you're like, something's different. Like something is like palpable, like it did happen, yeah. And then you're like, you want to get back to that, but times have moved on. We're in a whole new world now with,
yeah.
internet.
Yeah.
How do you feel like rock music in general at the moment, where it's kind of gone, musically, and just with the influence of the internet? What's your feelings on that?
Lack of radio support.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I like a lot of it, but I don't like a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I think everyone.
I think everybody's probably in that boat, but I'm a fan of, some bands. I want to label. I want to say who they are, but I also like. I don't think that every band sounds unique anymore. I'll say that.
I feel like it's harder to make something that sounds new now. I feel like that's more rare.
Yeah. And look, I mean, whatever you're into, like, you know, if you're finding new music and you're connecting with it, great. But after, you know, after a minute, you know, right now, I mean, if you go to listen to new music, there are certain tones that sound similar on everybody's records.
Yeah.
So unless you're gonna really dig in deep and think organically, you're not gonna come off sounding very original. You got to have the song, though. I mean, it comes down to the song. I mean, Bad Omens, you know, they have the music, they have the songs, and they crush it. That's a current band that I listen to.
Who are you listening to right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm listening to the new Peter Gabriel album. So that's on the old side, the old, you know, I mean, it's new, but it's like I grew up listening to that music, you know. So if I were to pick like an older artist, it would be that. His new album's awesome. On the new side, it's like, you know, I like the new Turnstile record. I like Bad Omens.
Demi loves Turnstile. You hit a nerd. Yeah, she loves Turnstile.
Yeah. And, you know, they're doing their own thing now. Like they get a lot of love and a lot of hate, you know, probably from their own fans. It's like that does happen. They're trying something, you know, I don't know. I don't want to speak for them, but yeah, exactly.
One thing before we're kind of winding down here a little bit, Pete, but one thing that's intrigued me in general as like a music history person is three-piece bands, you know, going back to Jimi Hendrix Experience and Traffic. You know, I'm blanking on other examples right now, but what would you, how did you guys manage to make such a full band sound out of a trio? And did you ever consider bringing in a second guitarist? Yeah. Why was the trio right for you?
Yeah, you know, I think about it daily, bringing in a guitarist. That's so, yeah, like I've thought about this for years. I think that I would love to just grab a microphone and put 100% focus on singing live. But it's also like a transition that needs to happen and you need time. So I do it here and I rehearse like that sometimes. And when I track records, I sing, I just hold the microphone. So it's something that's comfortable for me, but it's also like all these songs, it's just been us as a three-piece for so long. And it's hard to give up, you know? I don't know, because I see that with a lot of other bands too. Like, you know, there are times where like if I wasn't playing, you know, Send the Pain Below on guitar and singing it, I wonder if I would sing it the same way or if I would, you know. So there are questions, but yeah, we're talking about bringing in a guitarist just to give me some room. You know, this new album is really difficult to sing, and I'm rehearsing 4 tracks off of it right now. We're trying to figure out which ones we're going to play, obviously the singles, but you know, you don't want to like play too many new songs, you know, because you're going to, I don't know, people won't necessarily love that, but you also want to like keep it fresh, and you want to play, you know, it's just fun to play the new stuff. That's really what it is. So like you can go overboard, but you know.
Yeah, that's what I feel like we spend a lot of time this interview talking about stuff that sucks. Are you having fun with it, with this new music? Are you enjoying playing it? Is this in general, are you having a good time now?
Yeah. Oh, I always have a good time on stage. There's no way around it. Everything we do is to get there. That's it. Literally. Like even the recordings now, you're like, that services a different need, but it's like if I had to give up one thing, I'd be like, all right, well, I guess I would have to choose the performing. Mm-hmm. You know, there's nothing like that in the world. There's nothing that can give you that feeling. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're and also when you're stripped down 3-piece, you're exposed. If somebody messes up, everybody hears it, or however drunk they are, you know, in the moment. Yeah. You know, maybe not, but it's like, it's this kind of like controlled chaos. You feel like you're falling downstairs sometimes. Like, you know, when you know, when you play a new song, it's kind of terrifying. And if you get through it, you're relieved and you're like, oh no, this is what we do. We can do this. So, even this long in, I still think about that stuff. I still, before I'm going on to play a show, I'm still nervous. It's not like crippling, but you're like, I just want to go. I don't want to wait anymore. I'm always saying, hey, can we go now? If there's like a 30-minute changeover, you're like, we'll go as soon as you're ready. Don't make us wait, and, that brings us back, that makes everything make sense. It's always the show,
Yeah. So our last question, then we'll get you out of here, is, do you have a most memorable or favorite festival experience?
Oh man, festivals are fun. There are a lot of
it's a good summer question.
Yeah, they're crazy. Yeah, man. I like the festivals where we get to run in. Obviously, this is kind of a standard answer. You get to run into your old friends, things like that. Like we've toured with the band Korn, like a shit ton over the years.
Oh my God, can we talk about touring with Korn? That's one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, me too. Like we have so much history with that band. It's pretty funny. But I'm like, I don't even know if Monkey want me to say this, but we played, what was it? It was some California festival, SoCal, I think. No, maybe it was NorCal. Anyway, I'm up on deck waiting to go. They're waiting to go. And Monkey invites me up and he's like, hey, how's it going? It's good to see you. We haven't played a show in like 3 months. I'm freaking out. I'm like, you got this. What are you talking about? And he's like, I think he had just turned 50. And he goes, well, we're all getting up there in age, man. He's just like he's just talking like, cause he's nervous. And he's like, he was so real to me. And in that moment that I could relate. And I was so appreciative that he's so honest with me in that moment. And so he was like, well, we can't all do this forever. Can we? I don't know. We can do this, right? He's like, and he's just jumping around like this maniac. And I'll never forget that. And then they go on and completely crush it. And then afterwards, he was like, I don't know what was. Yeah, I was like, I don't know why you were like. We all have these fears. It's just we're human, right? And it was so nice to hear someone else who hit that level talk like that.
Yeah,
I know it's not supposed to be, whatever. Hopefully you see the positivity in that. It's that was one of the moments at a festival recently that a few years back that I shared with them.
And then they go on stage and there's just like the biggest mosh pit since like past 10 years.
Who can follow Korn? I mean,
Yeah.
It's hard.
All right. Thank you so much, Pete, for talking to us. We really appreciate the insight, and we're happy about the new album. Based on what's out so far, it sounds awesome. So
thank you.
Well, are you guys touring on it this fall, or I'm assuming you are?
Yeah, we start a tour August 7th, I want to say. And it goes up to Canada, but it's mostly just the whole United States. We have Asking Alexandria and Dead Poets Society coming out with us. So we start production on that soon, and we're going to be playing new stuff, old stuff. Yeah, man, I love playing the new stuff. I hope people dig it. We're happy to still be here, 10 albums in. So, yeah, man, it's been good.
All right. Thanks a lot, Pete.
Yeah, thank you.